To those who have been wondering, I am still alive and I'm now back to making regular weekly videos because my basement is finished. So check it out. Those of you who have done DIY projects in your house, whether it's remodeling a kitchen or redoing a bathroom, finishing a basement, you probably chuckled whenever I first announced I was going to finish mine and said that I hope to have it done in like a month or two. Because sure enough, that did not happen and it took much longer than expected. And even now it's not completely done. It's done enough to get back into making videos, but there's still some things I need to do. So it's been a long process, but I'm really glad that it's pretty much done and I can at least be back in here playing drums, making videos, and pretty soon doing some more recording. This space was completely unfinished when we bought the house a year ago in May of 2018. And I did just a couple things then before I moved my gear in initially. I put in R13 insulation around the stud part of the walls. It's cinder block below that. And I sealed that in with some sort of dry lock just to kind of help keep cold air out and prevent some of the moisture for that first year that I was in here. But for the actual finishing of the space, I also had to seal up the floor. So that was really the first thing I did. I added insulation in the ceiling, which was part of the soundproofing method that I'll explain more later. And then I added R-board on the cinder block wall out here. So at that point, once I had that done, everything was sealed up and there was insulation everywhere, which helps a lot towards keeping cold air out and preventing moisture also. The really fun part of this whole project was actually building the walls, doing the construction part. I really enjoy building things and I like it when I'm not having to follow a manual and I can just start cutting stuff and screwing things together and building. That was actually really fun. I built the walls. I had to start by doing base plates and literally building it stud by stud because the floor is not level. That's usually a good way to do basements rather than building a whole wall and putting it up. But first I had to build the walls and then build a doorway over here and build a cutout for the electrical stuff over here and doorways over here because there's a utility closet and I needed access under the stairs also. There were a lot of obstacles and that was kind of what slowed things down. I had to figure out how to reroute a big air intake that was in my way. I had to reroute some other things having to do with the AC and the heat so I could get those pushed into an area where I could build a bulkhead around it. I also had to reroute a water pipe. So all these little things that kind of happened in the midst of the construction really bogged things down. And most of this I was doing myself. At least up to this point I was doing everything all by myself until it came time for drywall. Thankfully, I was smart enough to hire somebody, a professional drywaller, to do the drywall, which saved a lot of time. So I had somebody come and hang all the drywall. It took him like one day. And then do all the mudding and sanding too, which was also super quick. And so at that point, things actually felt done. I'll explain more in a later video about the actual soundproofing methods I did. I told you kind of about that a while back, like what I was going to do. And basically the soundproofing is drywall, insulation, and a couple other factors that are at play. And so we're gonna actually do a comparison in a couple weeks. And we're gonna see, okay, how much difference did all this make? Because I've got recordings of the drums from the kitchen up above from before I did anything, and I also have recordings from in the middle of the construction process and then once it's done. So that's gonna be really interesting, and so we're gonna do that soon. Once the drywall was done, I just had to paint, which was also long and tedious. I don't enjoy painting. But I got everything painted and then I had some help to get the doors installed, which actually went pretty smoothly. And so at that point, once I added in the baseboards and vent covers and some of the cosmetic touches, things were pretty much done. So at this point, the one thing that's lacking here, you know, I've gotten rugs in here, I've gotten all the furniture and the lamps and all the lighting and all the gear into here, but what the room is still lacking is acoustical treatment. Now you can see back here I've got these panels, and these are basically DIY panels I made out of 2x2s with some towel stretched over. You might have seen the picture on Instagram. These are really just a temporary solution. I have an acoustician friend who's gonna help me out with some more professional panels to really get things sounding right here in the room. I still don't like the way it sounds right now. There's too much of that flutter echo. The drums just don't sound good. There's not a good room sound. So you'll notice in the next couple of videos that maybe things don't sound ideal if you are a critical listener, and you guys can make fun of my DIY panels that are kind of ugly. But that's just for the next few videos, because pretty soon we'll be fixing all that and really getting the room tuned up, which will be great. And so then for all the videos after that, we'll have a much better sound, and that's when we'll be doing the sound comparisons and the sound tests. Another interesting thing here, the room layout is different. Previously I had my drums almost right here where I'm sitting. There's a steel beam that holds up the house right here, and I had the drum situated underneath the beam where the kick drum was really in the middle of the room, which I really liked, but it kind of took up a lot of the floor space and made the room not really feel that big, especially if I had a band over for a rehearsal or had people over and were gathered around the speakers at my computer. So it really made more sense to push the drums to the right over here to the end of the room. So it kind of feels like they're in more of a corner now, but acoustically it's gonna be fine once we get the treatment up. And it's good having the drums pushed out of the way. So then I've got this space out here in the middle of the room. Much better for having people over to play and to rehearse and everything. Plus, if we're working on recording and we've got a mix playing, we can all gather around the mixing desk over there, which is much better than it was before. And so even though the room has actually shrunk a little bit because of building these walls, really I've lost about a foot in this direction, maybe a little less than a foot long ways. Plus the ceiling is a little bit lower on that end because of the bulkhead. But the room is actually smaller, but it feels bigger because I was able to play around with the layout. So thankfully I've still got a pretty decent 19 by 11.5 space. It's almost a 20 by 12 space. The ceilings are 8.5 feet here, 7.5 feet over on that end. There's a whole bunch of upcoming video topics that are all written out on a whiteboard right there that I could pan the camera around for you to see, but then it'd spoil the surprise, so we're not gonna do that. But I have a bunch of upcoming videos that are gonna be really cool, I'm really excited about. There'll be a few going up over the next couple of weeks. We're getting back onto that posting schedule now. This Friday, there will be a regular video. The following Fridays, there will be regular videos. And so for the next month or so, you'll see this setup. And then once we get all the acoustic treatment up, I'll be filming more videos. And so we'll have a bunch more really great topics coming up. And we'll be doing the sound test comparisons to ask the question of, does finishing a basement soundproof it? And what else do you need to do on top of standard basement finishing procedures to really soundproof it, lower your noise levels and your noise bleed. So I'm really excited about everything we got coming up. Lots of good stuff. I'm glad we can get back on the regular posting schedule again because I've missed that. I've missed being involved in making videos and doing this kind of stuff regularly. Even though I kind of did enjoy some of the construction process, but I'm very glad that it's done, that that's over. I can take a break from all the hard manual labor and get back to making music.